सुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, I beg your pardon, from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, Chapter 1, titled The Spiritual Masters, texts 12 and 13. Mahavishnuhu Jagatkarta Mayaya Yaha Srijati Adhaha Tasya Avataraha Eva Ayam Advaita Acharyaha Ishvaraha Advaitam Harina Advaitat. No, it's not here. Oh, the 13th is not up on the board. Huh? Okay. Is it on the back side? Well, 12th and 13th were supposed to be together. Okay, go ahead. Okay, all right. Mahavishnur Jagatkarta Mayaya Srijatyadaha Tasyavatara Evayam Advaitacharya Ishvaraha Mahavishnur Jagatkarta Mayaya Srijatyadaha Tasyavatara Evayam Advaitacharya Ishvaraha Mahavishnur Jagatkarta Mayaya Srijatyadaha Tasyavatara Evayam Advaitacharya Ishvaraha Vishnur Jagatkarta Yasrijatyadaha Vatara Evayam Tacharya Ishvaraha Vishnur Jagatkarta Yaya Srijatyadaha Avatara Evayam Tacharya Ishvaraha Mahavishnu Jagatkarta Mayaya Srijatyadaha Syavatara Evayam Dvaitacharya Ishvaraha. Matajis, please. Vishnu Jagatkarta Yaya Srijatyadaha Syavatara Evayam Hitacharya Ishvaraha. Vishnu Jagatkarta Mayaya Srijatyadaha तस्यावतार एवायम् अद्वैताचार्य ईश्वरः। विष्णुर्जगत्कर्ता मायया यः सृजत्यतः तस्यावतार एवायम् द्वैताचार्य ईश्वरः। Mahavishnuः, Mahavishnu, the resting place of the efficient cause. Jagat Karta, the creator of the cosmic world. Mayaya, by the illusory energy. Yaha, who, Srijati, creates, Adaha, that universe. Tasya, his, Avataraha, incarnation. Eva, certainly. Ayam, this. Advaita Acharyaha, Advaita Acharya. Ishvaraha, the Supreme Lord, the resting place of the material cause. Translation. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. Text 13. Advaitam harina dvaitad Acharyam bhakti shramsanat Bhaktavataram isham tam Advaitacharyam ashraye. Because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him. What is that drawing there? Oh. The conspiracy. Nothing to do with Advaita Acharya. Huh? I was a little confused. Okay. Okay. I thought this may be some conspiracy here. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Yananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. Today is the very auspicious appearance day anniversary of Srila Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya is part of the Panchatattva, the 5 principles of the Absolute Truth. In our Mangalacharana prayers, we chant Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So I'm sure we've all heard this verse. What this verse really means is that Krishna manifests himself in the form of 5 truths, Panchatattva. So Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam. So Krishna has manifested himself in 5 forms. And the first one, Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa. The Bhakta Rupa is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam. Swarupakam means the manifestation of the devotee, Bhakta Swarupa. That is Nityananda Prabhu. So Bhakta Rupa is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhakta Swarupa is Nityananda Prabhu. Bhakta Avatara, the Bhakta Avatar, the incarnation of the devotee, and that is Advaita Acharya. Bhaktakyam, he is called a devotee, he is known as a devotee, and that is Srivas Pandit. And Bhakta Shaktikam, the energy of the devotee, the devotional energy of Krishna, and that is Gadadhar Pandit, who is a manifestation of Srimati Radharani. So these are the 5 forms in which Advaita Acharya, or I beg your pardon, Krishna manifests himself in this world as the Panchatattva. The Panchatattva, as we all know, are representatives of the most munificent and merciful aspect of Krishna. They are distributing love of Godhead without any consideration of qualification or disqualification. Generally, for spiritual life, one needs a lot of qualification because one has to have a background of having cultivated spiritual knowledge and spiritual practices for several lifetimes. That is why we see that some people have a natural inclination towards spiritual life and some people don't. What accounts or what explains the reason why people have different mentalities, different proclivities and tendencies? Some people have an atheistic tendency naturally. Some people have a spiritual tendency naturally because there is something from the previous lives. There is history there. So therefore, when we come to the question of eligibility for spiritual life, it's a big question. And ordinarily, it is not possible for people to take to spiritual life in seriousness unless, of course, there is special mercy, special arrangement. So Krishna, when he appeared 5,000 years ago, he was quite strict in the Bhagavad Gita. He said, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and surrender to me. I shall protect you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. So Krishna promised that he will protect us from sinful reaction, that he will deliver us. But he also laid down a very stringent condition. And that condition was that you have to surrender to me. Sarva dharman parityaj. Abandon everything else and take exclusive shelter of me. Now that is something very hard, and especially for the people of this age, Kali Yuga. So Krishna takes on a very merciful form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and delivers without any consideration of qualification of the recipient the topmost mercy, the topmost gift of the pure love of Godhead. It doesn't distinguish whether someone has a background of spiritual life from the previous lives or in this life, whether someone is very sinful, someone is atheistic, someone is very offensive. He doesn't consider that at all. Because otherwise, there would be no question of spiritual life in Kali Yuga. Because in Kali Yuga, the propensity for sinful life and offensive life is so great that practically speaking, nobody would be able to do spiritual life. And as the days go by, nowadays, we can see it every passing year. Things are deteriorating and degenerating so rapidly. Things are becoming so heavily materialistic. That where is the hope? Where is the scope for the ordinary person of this age to attain spiritual perfection? So therefore, Krishna has to take on an extremely merciful form. Therefore, he comes in his Mahavadanyaya form. Mahavadanya means excessively merciful and magnanimous. However, when Krishna comes in the form of his most magnanimous form, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he doesn't come alone. He comes along with his associates. So the Panchatattva represent not just Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but also the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they are his associates in distributing love of Godhead. And now we come to the conspiracy part. Anyway, let's, since it's there on the board, we can talk about this transcendental conspiracy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates have hatched a transcendental conspiracy to trick everyone and give them love of Godhead. So they invite them in so many different ways, and then they trick them into receiving the highest gift. The recipients may not even be aware of that gift, may not even be aware that there is something called love of God. They may even be atheists. But then Mahaprabhu and his associates trick them into receiving this highest gift of Krishna consciousness, of Krishna prema. So Mahaprabhu comes with his associates, and chief amongst his associates are Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya. It is explained that Sriman Mahaprabhu is like the trunk of the tree of devotional service. Madhavendra Puri was a seedling, the seedling from which the tree of devotional service grew in this world. And Mahaprabhu personally became the trunk of that tree of devotional service. And then this main trunk had two secondary trunks, Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya. So they were, so to speak, his main lieutenants or his main assistants in propagating the cult of pure devotional service all over. So today being the appearance day of Advaita Acharya, the other secondary trunk from the main trunk of devotional service, we will speak something about him, try to understand who in truth he is, and also to discuss some of his pastimes. Kaviraj Goswami explains that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Mahaprabhu. He is the great Prabhu. Prabhu means Lord. So he is the great Lord. But Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu are also called Prabhus because they are also the Lord. They are also God directly. Therefore, we have two Prabhus and we have one Mahaprabhu. So all three are what we call Prabhu Tattva or Vishnu Tattva. They are all in the category of God. The other two of the Pancha Tattva are not in the category of God in the sense that they are not God, but they appear with God in an absolute sense. Spiritually, they are made of the same substance. The devotee of the Lord and the devotional energy of the Lord. So Advaita Acharya is directly the Supreme Lord also. This is a very confusing thing theologically. People don't understand. How can you have so many gods? It's not so many gods. It's the one same God who manifests himself in different ways, in different forms, for different purposes, and to fulfill the different desires of his devotees. So it is not some form of polytheism. Polytheism means the belief in many gods. So when we tell people that, well, we don't believe in polytheism, we believe that there is one God and the others are demigods, then the more intelligent and knowledgeable one amongst them, they say, well, we accept that you distinguish between God and the demigods. But even in the category of God, you have so many gods. You have Ram, Narasimha, Matsya, Varaha, and then now you have the modern avatars, Mahaprabhu and Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu. It's also confusing. It's not confusing because to expect that the Supreme Lord cannot expand himself into forms that are equal to him or similar to him is to limit the Lord. The Lord can very easily expand himself into unlimited forms, each of which is identical with him in terms of potency or qualities. And there may be other forms in which those qualities and potencies may be limitedly manifest. And in some forms, it may be unlimitedly manifest. But all of them are in the category of God. It is exactly because God is God and He is unlimited that He can expand Himself into various categories, into various forms of Himself. So Advaita Acharya is also one of those forms. And what is he exactly? In these two verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear Kaviraj Goswami saying that Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. And we all know who Mahavishnu is. He is the first of the three Purusha avatars. Now, for the first few minutes of this lecture, you will have to pay a little more attention to stay awake because we're going to discuss some philosophy. Did I hear you say, oh? And then the stories will come later. The pastimes will come later. The pastimes can be understood well when we understand the philosophy, the tattva. So there is tattva and there is lila. So we cannot understand lila properly unless we understand tattva properly. There people make a big mistake in understanding Krishna in this world. Without understanding who Krishna is, they want to go and understand Krishna's Rasa Leela. And they can't, of course. Therefore they criticize Krishna. How can God do this? How can God speak lies? How can God ask somebody else to speak lies? How can God do politics like this? How can God be diplomatic like that? So because they don't understand the tattva, they don't understand the truth or the philosophical understanding of Krishna, therefore they criticize Krishna's pastimes, his leelas. But once you understand the truth of Krishna, the principle of Krishna, then it's very easy to appreciate the pastimes. Then those very pastimes that are apparently controversial in the eyes of ignorant people, they become the most exalted pastimes. In the eyes of the world, especially those who don't have the any understanding of Krishna, his Ras Leela is one of the pastimes that are to be criticized. But for the devotees of Krishna, they appreciate that as the topmost, amongst the topmost pastimes of Krishna. So much so that even a sannyasi like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu worships those pastimes. Otherwise, what does a sannyasi have to do with the dancing of one young boy with other young girls? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was such a strict sannyasi. He would have no interaction with women at all. Very, very strict. But still, when it came to the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, he was very, very absorbed in them. So would he be absorbed in these pastimes if Krishna and the gopis were ordinary human beings of this world? Of course not. Therefore, we can understand the importance of understanding the truth of Krishna. So similarly, for understanding the truth of Advaita, the pastimes of Advaita Acharya, we need to also understand his truth or his principle. So here Kaviraj Goswami explains that Advaita Acharya is none other than Mahavishnu, who creates this material world through the actions of Maya. And because he is non-different from Hari, he is the Supreme Lord. He is called Advaita. Advaita means who is not different, non-dual. That means he is not different from Hari, not different from Krishna. He is also Krishna, the Supreme Lord. And because he propagates the cult of devotional service, therefore he is called Acharya, the great teacher. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee, therefore I take shelter of him. So therefore Advaita Acharya is not a jiva like us. He is not a demigod even. He is directly the Supreme Lord. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Leela, as we go on in one of the later chapters that deals exclusively with Advaita Acharya, there is a slightly technical understanding of who Advaita Acharya is, and I will just dwell on it very briefly, not in detail. Kaviraj Goswami explains that the Supreme Lord manifests himself in two ways in connection to the creation of this material world, inasmuch as that there are two aspects of Maya. In the first aspect, the Lord is the efficient cause of the material universe, and in the second, he is the material cause. What does it mean to be the efficient cause and the material cause? The efficient cause is that he is the instrument by which the world is created, and the material cause means that he is responsible for arranging the material ingredients and to see that these material ingredients are then set in motion. So when he is the efficient cause, he is called Mahavishnu. And when he is the material cause, he is called Advaita Acharya. So what does Mahavishnu do? Mahavishnu lies in the causal ocean and he glances at Maya Devi, at Prakriti. And through his glance, the material energy is activated. But that activation is not directly done. It is done through the agency of Shambhu. And that aspect of the Lord that deals with it is Advaita Acharya. Therefore, Advaita Acharya is considered not just an incarnation of Mahavishnu, but also of Shiva. In fact, he is considered a combined incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. In the scripture called the Gauda Ganodesha Deepika, it is mentioned that there is a cowherd boy called Sadashiva. Sadashiva resides in Goloka Vrindavan also. And he is a cowherd boyfriend of Krishna and Balaram. And he dances with them. So it is this cowherd boy Sadashiva, who also manifests as Advaita Acharya. So we can see the connection between Advaita Acharya and Mahavishnu on one hand and Sadashiva on the other hand. So much for all the technical philosophy. Well, those of you who are more philosophically inclined, you should study the Chaitanya Charitamrita more in detail, and you will get a much deeper understanding. It's very, very fascinating. However, today we will not go so deep into the topic. Suffice it to say that Advaita Acharya is directly the Supreme Lord and the combination of Mahavishnu and Lord Sadashiva. This is the month of Magh. It is the phase of the waxing moon, the Shukla Paksha, and it is the 7th Tithi, the Saptami Tithi. So it is in this Shukla Saptami of Magh that Advaita Acharya was born. His father's name was Kuber Pandit. His mother's name was Nabha Devi. Kuber Pandit was a very devout person. He was a devotee of Narasimhadev, and his wife was also a very pure-hearted devotee of the Lord. And it is explained in Bhakti Ratnakar that Advaita Acharya was born in Sylhet in present-day Bangladesh. In other scriptures, in some other books, we have some slight variations, that he was born in some other place, Laura, and then he shifted to Sylhet. This is mentioned in the book called the Gaudiya Vaishnava Abhidhana, and in some places a third place is mentioned. But regardless, it is a fact that he eventually moved to Sylhet in his childhood. His parents moved there, and having moved there, eventually, as he grew up, he moved to Shantipur. Of course, there are various descriptions. It is said that his father Kuber Pandit one time he prayed fervently to Lord Sadashiva, and Lord Sadashiva appeared before him, and he said, "What kind of benediction do you want?" And he said, "I want someone like you as my son." And then Sadashiva replied that you can't have someone like me, but I will come myself. And that is how Sadashiva came as Advaita Acharya and became the son of Kuber Pandit and Nabha Devi. So he was named Sri Kamalaksha. Kamala means lotus, Aksha means eyes. So Kamalaksha means one who has lotus eyes. Of course, it's the name of Krishna also. He was also called Kamalakanta Veda Pachanana. He was a great scholar. Right from his childhood, he was brilliant. He learnt all the Vedas and all sorts of subjects very, very quickly. He was very beautiful from childhood, and all the people in the village were struck with wonder to see the beauty of this child. And they all began to glorify Kuber Pandit and Nabha Devi as being very, very fortunate souls. And as time went by and Kamalaksha grew, he exhibited many, many wonderful devotional qualities. His parents departed from this world. Young Kamalaksha then went to Gaya to perform the Shraddha ceremony for his parents. From there he went to Vrindavan. He performed a lot of devotional service in Vrindavan, and of course Advaita Acharya has another connection to Vrindavan, which I will mention briefly now. From Vrindavan he came back eventually via Mithila to Shantipur. In Mithila he met the great devotee poet Vidyapati, whose poems, amongst others, Mahaprabhu would hear in Jagannath Puri along with Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar. Now, Advaita Acharya's connection to Vrindavan is that he was the one who discovered the Madan Gopal deity. In the place Advaita Vat, there is a Vata tree where he would sit, under which he would sit, and it is there that he discovered this Madan Gopal deity. And then the Madan Gopal deity was handed over by him to a Brahmana from Mathura called Purushottam Chaube. And then it was there that Sanatan Goswami saw this deity. And the deity was moving around as if he was an ordinary child. Chaube and his family accepted the deity of Madan Gopal as their son. And he was a playmate of their other human son. And the two would play together just like two boys play. And therefore they would treat Madan Gopal just like they would treat their own son. And it was a very familiar scene there. Sometimes they would scold their son, just like any parent would scold their children. They would feed them. And Sanatan Goswami, of course, was aghast when he saw that. And he said, what are you doing? This is the deity. You can't treat the deity like this. And Chaube and his wife became very concerned. Oh, we have committed some offense. And then Krishna, Madan Gopal, appeared in his dream to Advaita Acharya, to Sanatan Goswami, and said, "You have spoiled all the fun." And then Sanatan Goswami felt bad. Oh, what have I done? I have committed some offense. Meanwhile, Madan Gopal also appeared in the dream of Purushottam Chaube and said, "Henceforth I want to be served by Sanatan Goswami. And this Goswami will come to you tomorrow, hand me over to him, and then he will serve me from now on." And he also appeared in the dream of Sanatan Goswami to say, "Now you go to Purushottam Chaube's place and you start serving me." After that, when Sanatan Goswami started serving Madan Gopal, he became known as Madan Mohan. And then we have the famous Madan Mohan temple. So the role of Advaita Acharya is very important in the deity of Madan Mohan and the temple there. So in any case, he came back to Shantipur and he established his house there. Later on, he also had another house in Navadvip. He would stay sometimes in Shantipur and sometimes in Navadvip. Navadvip in those days, of course, was a great place of learning. And that is where Mahaprabhu appeared. So Advaita Acharya had a house over there also. It is explained that Advaita Acharya was born in 1434 and he departed from this world in 1559, which means 125 years. He was 125 years when he departed. And the date of birth, 1434, also means that he was how many years older than Mahaprabhu? 52. You have to remember the appearance day of year of Mahaprabhu, 1486. Yes. When I was at another temple, they had a number lock at the main door of the ashram as you entered in. So once I was late. So when I had gone to a preaching program and we came back, the door was closed. Then the devotee who was with me, he called up somebody and said, "Look, we want to come in." He mentioned that I was waiting. Then he said, "Please tell me that the code is the appearance year of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." Maybe he didn't want him to know. And he judged that he wouldn't know the number because we didn't want anyone and everyone coming to the ashram. So then I put in the number and I was able to enter. So useful practically also to know the year of appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It can sometimes ensure that you're not locked out. So Advaita Acharya was 52 years older than Mahaprabhu. So when Mahaprabhu took sannyas at the age of 24, Mahaprabhu, you can imagine, he was how much older? He was 52 years, 76 years old at that time. But he was going strong. And after Mahaprabhu moved to Jagannath Puri, Advaita Acharya was there with him all the time, coming for 4 months when he moved from, traveled with the devotees from Bengal. And he would be chanting and dancing along with the other young people there. And he lived for 125 years, which is also very significant. So anyway, he came back and he settled down in Shantipur. He had 2 wives, Sita Devi and Sri Devi. In those days it was common practice, especially for Kshatriyas and to some degree also for Brahmanas. Sita Devi was none other, Sita Thakurani was none other than Yogamaya, and her expansion was Shri. So these were the two consorts, the two wives of Advaita Acharya. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, at that time Sita Thakurani came to the house of Jagannath Mishra, and she carried many gifts for baby Nimai. She played a very important role along with the other elder ladies there. So of course, Advaita Acharya at that time did not know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had appeared. But he had played a very significant role in the appearance of the Lord. Kaviraj Goswami explains that there are some external reasons and some internal reasons for the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One of the external reasons was that Advaita Acharya had called him very, very loudly. When Advaita Acharya lived in Navadvip as well as Shantipur, and especially in Navadvip, he could see that the age of Kali was really setting in very deeply. Navadvip was a place of learning. Scholars from all over the country would come there to live, and they would carry out all sorts of debates on various topics, grammar, logic, and various forms of scholarly other topics in Sanskrit, in Alankar and metaphors and Natya and Kavya and various things. But hardly anyone was talking about bhakti. And these scholars were either atheistically inclined, even though they quoted scriptures, or they were worshippers of demigods and were very, very materialistic. So Advaita Acharya was extremely disheartened to see this condition. So he used to lament that there was hardly any devotee around. So he would petition the Lord, please send not just your representative, but you come yourself. And not just an ordinary avatar will do, you have to come yourself. Swayam Bhagavan, Krishna, you have to come. Don't send your avatars, because the situation is pathetic now. Even these great scholars are atheists and materialists. So what can happen to the general populace? They will definitely be very, very fallen. So Advaita Acharya actually, because he was a great scholar himself, he had opened a toll, a school, and he would teach there. And he would regularly speak from the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he would give very clear devotional conclusions. There were many other speakers too who were very, very scholarly. But they would speak all sorts of convoluted, confused philosophy. Some of them are Mayavadis, some of them had just no idea what they were talking about. They would just juggle words. They were expert in grammar. But in terms of the ultimate conclusions or the philosophical understanding, they were way off the mark. So Advaita Acharya was practically amongst the only ones to give the right devotional conclusions to the scriptures. So he would speak every day, and many people would attend his classes. So, and because there were few people who would come, only a handful of Vaishnavas would come. So Advaita Acharya decided it is time I should do something about it. So he began to worship his Shaligram Shilas, offering them Tulsi Manjari and Ganga Jal, the water from the Ganga. And he prayed fervently to the Lord, to Krishna himself, that he should descend in Navadvip and deliver the fallen and sinful souls of this age. If this was the condition of the Brahmanas, the so-called scholars, he understood what would be the condition of the other people. So he chanted many, many verses as he was offering the Tulasi and the Ganga Jal to the Shaligram. And Kaviraj Goswami especially mentions this one verse, Tulasi Dalamatrena Jalasya Chulukena va Vikrinite Swamatmanam Bhaktebhya Bhakta Vatsalaha, in which means that the Lord is being the Lord is being glorified. Tulasi dalamatrena, merely just by one leaf of tulasi. Jalasya chulukenava. Jala means here Ganga Jal or Yamuna Jal, the water of the Ganga or Yamuna. Chulukenava, if you have a little bit of Ganga water, Yamuna water in the palm of your hand. So with just a tulasi leaf and a little bit of Ganga water, Vikrinite swam atmanam bhaktebhyaha. If the devotees offer the tulasi leaf and Ganga Jal to Krishna with devotion, Krishna becomes so obliged that he is actually purchased by such an offering. He sells himself to the devotees. Vikrinite swam atmanam. He sells himself to the devotee, to the devotees, bhaktebhyaha. Why does he do that? Because he is bhakta vatsala. Because he is a lover of the devotees. The devotees are very dear to him. So when the devotees worship him with devotion with the tulasi leaf and Ganga Jal, then he gives himself up to them. This is the beauty of the reciprocal relationship of love between Krishna and his devotees. The devotees surrender themselves to Krishna, and Krishna surrenders himself to the devotees. This is the wonderful feature of devotional service. It's a two-way thing. It's not just one way. Presently it is one way because only Krishna loves us, we don't love Krishna. And the goal of life is to make it two-way. We also now express our love for Krishna in a genuine and deep way. So Advaita Acharya every day was chanting these verses and chanting the holy names, offering tulasi leaf and Ganga water to the Shaligram Shila. And along with that, he was loudly petitioning the Lord to appear, roaring sometimes. Kaviraj Goswami says, Hunkar. Hunkar is a kind of a loud roar. So he must have had a very stentorian voice. So he used to roar, Please, O Krishna, you have to appear. And after many days of continuously doing this, Krishna finally was obliged, felt himself obliged to appear. And he said, okay, my dear devotee Advaita Acharya is calling me, how can I refuse? So this is the power that the devotee wields over the Supreme Lord. The Lord subjects himself to the control of the devotee, and therefore therefore Krishna doesn't award devotional service so easily. He may give you, if you ask him for sense gratification, he will give it very easily. Well, actually, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that. If you ask for liberation also, he may give it very easily. But devotional service, pure devotion, very difficult. He doesn't give it easily. So therefore, when devotees sometimes get a little despondent, thinking, I've been chanting for so many years and so many anarthas are still there, it's not going away. I still sleep in my chanting, I sleep in the Bhagavatam class. And where is love of Godhead? There's no sign of those ecstatic symptoms and the hair standing on end, and when will it ever happen to me? No, we needn't despair. Krishna will give it, but he's testing us. He wants us to come to the required platform. Krishna is not going to give it to us so easily. Come easy, go easy. Something that is obtained very easily, we take it for granted and we may lose it. So Krishna doesn't want us to lose it. He wants us to earn every penny of it properly. So therefore, when Krishna wants us to become pure devotees, he wants us to struggle for it. He wants us to work really hard for it, very sincerely. He wants us to go through the trials and tribulations of living in this material world and trying to attain pure Krishna consciousness. In the midst of all the other things, that the ups and downs that come, all the troubles of the mind and so on. But if we simply persevere, then Krishna ultimately will be pleased and say, yes, here is such and such a devotee. now this devotee is ready. This devotee is my faithful devotee. Despite so many troubles and struggles, he or she has not given up my service. So therefore I shall award this devotee pure devotional service. So the struggle, we should be prepared for it. So then Krishna was thinking, my devotee Advaita Acharya is beckoning me so fervently, so I must respond. So it was in response to the pleas, fervent pleas of Advaita Acharya that Gauranga Mahaprabhu actually appeared. And of course at that time Advaita Acharya did not know, because he was also playing the role of a human. As a devotee, he wasn't playing the role of the Supreme Lord. So in any case, he continued his teaching, he continued his toll and so on. He was speaking about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and someone may question, well, we hear that we must take initiation from the proper sampradaya, and we hear that even Krishna sets the standard when he comes and he accepts a guru. Krishna accepted Sandipani Muni, Lord Ram also accepted Vasishtha and others, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Ishwar Puri as his guru. So what about Advaita Acharya? Kaviraj Goswami mentions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Advaita Acharya, beg your pardon, took initiation from Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was the grand spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a spiritual master of Ishwara Puri as well. So when Madhavendra Puri was instructed by Gopal in Govardhan, in his dream, to go and fetch sandalwood from Jagannath Puri, from Malaya actually. So Madhavendra Puri started walking, and all the way down south, when he reached Shantipur, at that time Advaita Acharya happened to see him, and he immediately recognized him as a pure devotee Acharya. He surrendered to him and begged for initiation, and Madhavendra Puri initiated Advaita Acharya. So Madhavendra Puri is the Diksha Guru of Advaita Acharya. So Advaita Acharya therefore was like a god uncle to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So having accepted initiation, he continued his teachings and so on, and then he moved on with his preaching. And it is at that time that Nimai Pandit's or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's elder brother Vishwarup would come. And as a young boy, he would love to come and hear Advaita Acharya speaking on the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. He would just sit there completely absorbed in Advaita Acharya's discourses. And sometimes when Advaita Acharya was busy with his worship of the deities, then young Vishwarup would sit and explain the principles of devotional service to the assembled devotees. And he would explain Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in such a nice way with a devotional purport. When Advaita Acharya would hear that, as he was worshipping the deity, he would stop worshipping the deity and get up and embrace this young boy. So Vishwarup was a regular attendee at these satsangs of Advaita Acharya. And Sachimata, the mother of Vishwarup and Nimai, would send young Nimai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with the lunch prasadam, that go and give this lunch prasadam to your older brother. And very dutifully, young Nimai, who was very young at that time, and he would carry the box, the errands given by the mother, and he would go to the place where Advaita Acharya was speaking, and there he would find his older brother Vishwarup, and he would give the lunch to him and come back. It was at these times that Advaita Acharya would see this young boy coming, and he would always be struck with wonder to see the beauty of this boy. And he would wonder, why am I getting so attracted to this little boy? How come he is so beautiful and he is endowed with so many wonderful qualities? And he must have been just an infant at that time, or just a little over the age of infancy. So Advaita Acharya would see and look forward to Nimai coming there every day to his stall. And one day, of course, as destiny would have it, Vishwarup was so influenced by the spiritual talks and the spiritual atmosphere that prevailed in Advaita Acharya's place that he decided to renounce the world and take sannyas. And this was especially when he overheard his parents having discussions about his marriage. In those days, as you know, people would get married very, very early. And even though they got married early, they would live together only after they grew up a little bit. Marriage may have been even when they were 7, 8 years old, 10 years old, and so on. But they lived together only when they grew up. So they would continue to stay at their parents' home. So anyway, now that Vishwarup was grown up, he was a young lad now, a teenaged boy, and the parents were thinking of marriage for him. Of course, that happens even now in the villages in India. And I remember meeting one boy, and he had come from one of the states in India. And so I was asking, where are you from, and so on and so forth. He was taking interest in Krishna consciousness. Then he said, I'm from such and such village in such and such state. So I said, he said, I have to go back for some vacations over there. I said, why? It's because my wife is there. I said, your wife? Because he looked really like a small boy. I said, well, you're married? He said, yes. I got married a couple of years ago. So these things are going on still. It is there. In a sense, it is always a good principle to get married early. I'm not saying you should marry when you're 9 or 10 years of age. But the principle of marrying when you're young is always wiser, is always better for many, many reasons. So the Vedic tradition has many strong logical reasons for it, but because people don't understand that, they criticize it. So in any case, because his parents were making arrangements for his marriage, Vishwarup one fine day just disappeared. And then somehow the word came around that he had gone to take sannyas. He never returned after that, and there was no news of him. And Jagannath Mishra never quite recovered from that blow, because he and Sachi Mata were very attached to both their sons. And when Vishwarup disappeared like this, they were very grief-stricken, and they had no news where he was. And it is only much later, when Nimai grew up and he became a sannyasi, he moved to Jagannath Puri, and he went to South India to visit places of pilgrimage. And on the way back from these places, he travelled to Pandharpur, that he met Sri Rangapuri, who was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, who then informed him about a sannyasi called Shankararanya, who was a son of Jagannath Mishra of Navadvip. And that is when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood what had happened to his older brother Vishwarup, who had now become Shankararanya Swami, and then he had even departed, taken samadhi, he had departed from this world. So anyway, Jagannath Mishra never quite recovered. He was heartbroken. And when young Nimai started showing some interest and becoming scholarly, and he started visiting the place of Advaita Acharya, Sachi Mata also became very worried, and they stopped his education. So because our older son, Vishwarup, learned so much of spiritual knowledge, so therefore he developed renunciation. And he saw that this world is in vain, life in this world is vain, is futile. Therefore, we should not educate our children. Parents many times get afraid to send their children here to this temple also, attending temples, because they're always worried that they will renounce the world, what will happen. So Sachi Mata and Jagannath Mishra were worried, so they stopped sending Nimai to school. And it is only when Nimai started speaking sweetly like the incarnation Dattatreya that they once again resumed his education. So in any case, in her mind, Sachi Mata was actually thinking that Advaita Acharya was the cause of my son taking sannyas. And because Advaita Acharya was such an exalted devotee and greatly respected in the devotees, and she was a very cultured Vaishnavi lady, so she didn't think ill about Advaita Acharya. Even though it's a great loss to lose my oldest son, but anyway, this is the arrangement of Providence, it's the arrangement of Lord Krishna. But when Nimai started visiting Advaita Acharya's classes, then she started getting worried. And she was thinking in her mind, because by this time Nimai had also got married. She had arranged for his marriage. His first marriage was to Lakshmi Priya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, was very young at that time also. And he became attracted to Advaita Acharya's explanations of devotional service. And he would go there, and Sachi Mata used to get really anxious. What if he follows in the footsteps of his older brothers? What if he also takes sannyas? And now he's already married. So if he leaves his wife and goes, that will be disaster. And then in her mind, she began to think, this Advaita Acharya, his name is Advaita, which means one, non-dual, non-different. But actually, he should be Dvaita, because he splits. He's splitting people from their families. He has split my older son from us, and now he will be the cause of my youngest son Nimai splitting from his wife. So he's actually Dvaita, not Advaita. So she didn't speak about this to anyone. She was too cultured to do anything like that. But in her mind, she was thinking like this, or she thought. Nobody knew that she thought like this. But but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, of course, being the Supreme Lord, understood that. So then he was thinking, my mother has committed an offense. And one day he proclaimed very loudly to her that you have committed offense, and therefore you will not get that Krishna Prem. So she was thinking, really, what offense have I committed? And then Mahaprabhu explained to her, this is what you did. You committed an offense at the lotus feet of Advaita Acharya, and therefore you can't get Krishna Prem. So then she became really anxious. So what should I do to get rid of this offense? So then Mahaprabhu said, all right, I'll help you. So one time when he was speaking about Krishna and chanting, Advaita Acharya went into a trance of devotional ecstasy, and he fell down and he became unconscious. At that time, Sachi Mata took the hint from her son, and she took the dust from the lotus feet of Advaita Acharya and smeared it on her head and her body, and then she was forgiven for her offense to Advaita Acharya. So this was a pastime. It's actually a big leela, because we don't have so much time and there are so many pastimes, so I'm just giving these pastimes in brief. And these pastimes have been analyzed by the Acharya also as the pastime of Sachi Mata's offense. There are lots of purports to that and so on. So in any case, so Vaishnava Aparadha is so dangerous that even if one is the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to be cautious that one doesn't offend a Vaishnava. This is how seriously Krishna takes Vaishnava Aparadha. That you may be my mother, you may be my father, you may be anybody, but don't offend Vaishnavas. So we can learn this from the example, from this pastime of Sachi Devi. One time, Nimai, after he had returned from Gaya and he had begun his devotional pastimes, one day he decided to manifest his divinity, to reveal his position as being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he told a devotee called Ramai to call different devotees, and especially he sent him to call Advaita Acharya. When Advaita Acharya understood that Nimai or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had actually revealed his own divinity, then he decided to play a trick. So he told Ramai, "Don't tell Mahaprabhu where I am." And he went and hid in the house of Nandanacharya. And then Mahaprabhu, of course, because now he was assuming his position as the Supreme Lord, so he told Ramai, he said, "Go to Nandanacharya's house and call Advaita Acharya." So when Ramai came there to call him, "Mahaprabhu asked me to come here to call you." Then Advaita Acharya became blissful. He said, now he has passed the test. So he accepted him. Of course, he knew that he was a Supreme Lord, but he was very blissful that he passed this test. Advaita Acharya was also very friendly to Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was also quite elderly, many years older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there were other pastimes that had taken place. As Haridas Thakur had been wandering in many places, eventually he came to Navadvip and also to Shantipur, and they became great friends. And they respected each other very much because both were exalted devotees. Now Advaita Acharya, because he was from the Brahmana community, performed the rituals that were required of a Brahmana Grihastha, especially the Shraddha ceremonies for the departed forefathers. And it is a custom that when such a Shraddha ceremony is performed, you invite the Brahmanas to come home and you feed them prasadam, Krishna prasadam, and especially you nominate one amongst those Brahmanas to be the chief, and you feed him the main plate. So he decided to call Haridas Thakur to accept that honor. And Haridas Thakur said, "But I am a Yavana. I am born in a Yavana family, a meat-eater's family. I am not even a Brahmana. How can you accord this honor to me? And you will be criticized greatly in the society as well." So Advaita Acharya and he explained, they had a wonderful conversation there. And Advaita Acharya explained, whatever I am doing is actually according to the injunctions of the scriptures. I am not doing anything that is forbidden in the scriptures. Because you are such an exalted Vaishnava, pure devotee of Krishna, calling you here is like calling millions of pure Brahmanas here. Therefore, what I am doing is exactly in accordance with the scriptures. So then he did do that. He did give him that plate that was meant to be offered to the Brahmanas. So Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur remained there as friends, and they would chant the holy names, they would have Krishna Katha together. Nevertheless, Advaita Acharya had one sorrow in his heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as a devotee, had taken initiation from Ishwar Puri, who had taken initiation from Madhavendra Puri. So therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a grand disciple of Madhavendra Puri, and Advaita Acharya was the direct disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So Advaita Acharya was like a guru for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was 50 years older, 52 years older in age, plus he was also the godbrother of his own guru. So then he used to like to treat Advaita Acharya with great respect. He would offer obeisances to him, and he would treat him with so much respect that Advaita Acharya would feel extremely frustrated. Because Advaita Acharya understood who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, truly, that he was Krishna himself. And he simply wanted to serve Mahaprabhu and become his servant. But nevertheless, when Mahaprabhu, what to speak of accepting his service, actually would treat him like his own guru, this became very awkward, embarrassing and frustrating for Advaita Acharya. I want to be his servant, but he is treating me like his master. So Advaita Acharya, because as you know, devotees are very intelligent. So Advaita Acharya was thinking, how can I trick Mahaprabhu into accepting me as his servant? So he said, all right. He said, yes, Mahaprabhu is very, very particular that devotees should not speak Mayavad philosophy. Because Mahaprabhu had on earlier occasions also mentioned that learning or hearing Mayavad philosophy is extremely offensive to Krishna. Because the Mayavadi philosophers, they do not accept the form of Krishna. They only think of the impersonal Brahman, and they want to become one with that impersonal Brahman. They think themselves to be God. So decrying the very personality of Godhead is very offensive. So Mahaprabhu would severely reprimand anyone who had anything to do with Mayavadis, who would go and hear the Mayavadis speak. So Advaita Acharya decided, all right, this is what I'm going to do. Because he will become so angry with me that he will chastise me. He will reprimand me. And one can only reprimand someone who is subordinate to one. We do not reprimand a superior person. That is never done. So then Advaita Acharya reasoned that if I do something that outrages Mahaprabhu, then he will definitely reprimand me. And that reprimand will indicate that he has accepted me as his servant. So then Advaita Acharya decided to speak on Yoga Vasishtha, which contains many Mayavadi things. And every day he would go to a particular place and start speaking Mayavad philosophy. And naturally the word got around to Advaita Acharya, to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu became furious. And he rushed there with a stick and began to beat Advaita Acharya like anything. You rascal, you are speaking Mayavad philosophy. And he was beating him and beating him. And his poor wife, Sita Thakur, what are you doing? What are you doing? He will die. But no, he deserves to be beaten. And Advaita Acharya was in complete ecstasy. My life is now perfect. I have attained the perfection of my life. I am being beaten by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and I have been accepted as his servant. Of course, we remember, we can't imitate Advaita Acharya. That doesn't mean that we should go and start speaking Mayavad philosophy somewhere so that some devotee should accept us as a servant. We should be cautious. So then Mahaprabhu understood that he had been tricked. But anyway, Advaita Acharya's purpose had been accomplished. So in any case, Mahaprabhu said, Advaita Acharya, you are very, very intelligent. You have tricked me. And Advaita Acharya was in great bliss. Today, my life has become successful. Mahaprabhu has accepted me as his servant. And Advaita Acharya also every year, once Mahaprabhu took sannyas, then Advaita Acharya would go every year to Jagannath Puri along with all the other devotees from Bengal. He would live there for the 4 months, which are called the Chaturmasya, celebrate all the festivals with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then come back along with the devotees. In Navadvip, he would continue leading the community of devotees as a senior most member along with Srivas Thakur. Haridas Thakur, of course, remained behind in Jagannath Puri with Mahaprabhu. There are many, many other pastimes of Advaita Acharya that are mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and so on. And since it's past 10 o'clock, I'll just conclude with one final small pastime. One time Advaita Acharya asked Jagadananda that please go and communicate this message to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This was many years after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas, towards the later part of his pastimes, the Antya Leela. He said, go and tell him that here is a message from one madman to another madman, you have made everybody mad, and nobody is willing to purchase any rice. Therefore, there is no need now for any more attempt to sell rice. So accept this message from a madman. And Jagadananda was not able to figure out anything. What is the meaning of this message? But Mahaprabhu understood the message. The message that was in a riddle form actually meant that Advaita Acharya was saying that, my dear Lord, you came here to taste the nectar of Krishna Prem in the mood of Vrindavan, in the mood of Srimati Radharani. You came here and you have tasted it. You have become intoxicated with Krishna Prem. You have become a madman, mad with Krishna Prem. And also you have made me mad. I have also become a madman in ecstatic love for Krishna. And you have made the whole world mad in Krishna Prem. You have given Krishna Prem liberally to everyone in this world. And this was the purpose for which you advented. And now that you have accomplished your purpose, there is no need for anyone to go and buy the rice of Krishna Prem from anyone. Now that your mission has been accomplished, you may please consider if you want to depart from this world and go back to your abode. Because after all, whenever Krishna appears in this world, he comes, he descends, he performs his pastimes, accomplishes his mission, and then returns to his abode. And usually hints are given to the Lord about, okay, this is the time for you now to depart. Even for Lord Ram, we hear in the Valmiki Ramayana, he was given hints by the demigods who came and said, Brahma sent a message, my dear Lord, it's time now. The mission for which we petitioned your advent has been accomplished. You may, if you feel as you choose, depart back for your home. It happened also with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Advaita Acharya then indicated to him that now the time for your departure has come. If you so choose, you may depart from this world. So Advaita Acharya was the cause of Mahaprabhu's descent, and therefore through this riddle and the message, in a sense he was also the cause for Mahaprabhu's disappearance from this world, now that Mahaprabhu's purpose had been achieved. Srila Advaita Acharya ki jai. Sri Advaita Acharya Appearance Day ki jai. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, please.
Haribol. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Maharaj, I have got two questions. One was, you mentioned that what are the principles for getting married early? The second was, second one I want to know who was the Guru of Haridas Thakur Prabhu.
So what's the first question? What about early marriages?
You mentioned, Maharaji, that there are advantages in getting married early, and there are some principles behind it.
Okay. Are you asking it because you doubt it, or?
No, Maharaji, not because I doubt it.
Just for clarity's sake.
Yes, Maharaji.
Well, that's a big topic, and maybe not quite the right day and the occasion to talk about this. We'll leave it for another time. As far as Haridas Thakur's Guru is concerned, not much is known about it. Haridas Thakur is a mysterious personality. Who his parents were, where he was born, what he did in his childhood, what exactly was the point of transformation when he became a Vaishnava, if at all there was a transformation. These points are not very clear. The earliest that we get information of Haridas Thakur is that he was just wandering He was going to various places, and whatever Kaviraj Goswami is described here. But there is no clear mention of his initiating guru. But Mahaprabhu was his direct authority. Mahaprabhu personally spent time with Haridas Thakur. He blessed him personally. In Jagannath Puri, he would go every day in the afternoon to meet him at Siddha Bakul. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, please. The mic, please. Yeah. Or if someone else has it. Okay, fine.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. During your class, you mentioned about the making love of Godhead two-way process, wherein right now in Kali Yuga it's one-way process from God's side. So you said that Krishna tests every time to devotee who wants to have a pure love. So with that respect, physical austerities for a devotee, how much it important to do to make that two-way process? And this is one part, and other part is, what are other aspects of that two-way process of making devotional love perfect?
Your question relates to what kind of austerity should we perform in order to obtain Krishna Prem. Yes, that's in brief your question. We just follow the program that is laid down by Srila Prabhupada. He has given us a program of austerities which is neither too austere nor too watered down. If we don't perform any austerities, or if the austerities are very watered down, then we will become eligible for the path of karma. If our austerities are too severe, then we become eligible for the path of jnana. The path of bhakti is an intermediate path. And therefore the austerities that are involved in the process of devotional service are also of the intermediate category. Neither too severe nor too watered down. And practically what does it mean for us? What it means is that we should simply follow Srila Prabhupada's program. We have to follow the 4 regulative principles, we have to chant minimum 16 rounds of the Mahamantra every day, we have to follow all the other rules of Ekadashi, observing the festivals, serving the devotees, engaging in various other forms of devotional service as he has taught. That is our austerity. And of course, as you know, in Kali Yuga, one of the greatest austerities is to live together happily with others, without quarreling, without having ego clashes and without having disturbances. So that is the biggest austerity we can do. If we can serve the other devotees without letting ego and other things come in the picture, then that will be good. Yes, mic here please.
All right, thank you very much for this wonderful discussions. Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of the Lord, as you were speaking. And when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also came, we also know that he's an incarnation of the Lord.
He is?
It's the Lord himself who has come.
Yes.
But his mood, he came as a devotee to teach us how we should worship him. So why is it that in some temple we used to put peacock feather on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's head? If that is his mood as a devotee, why do we put peacock feather in his head as the Lord himself? Is it explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, or is the devotee's desire, knowing that he's the Supreme Personality of God, that we should dress him like that?
Yes, it is because we acknowledge them to be the Supreme Personalities of Godhead.
Temples in all over the world,
Sorry, say that again.
In all the temples, ISKCON temples, must Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's deity be put peacock feather? They should dress them with peacock feather?
Prabhupada has spoken about these things briefly. These are topics that become topics of debate many times, but we need not make it a issue. Since Prabhupada says, we do it. That is our understanding, because we accept them as a Supreme Lord, so we offer. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for this lovely class. On this day of 26th January, I was just having a small doubt that we have devotional service, which we have, which is the prima facie of why we are doing devotion. And we are having national spirit, which is also there. So there are being, like we organized a India Rising festival very recently at our place. There were a lot of debates about whether that is like a little lower kind of thinking about your nation, and being devotees you should think on a higher level, which is very, very true. But is it wrong to have Desh Prem in your heart? Is it wrong to have love of country in your heart? Hare Krishna. I mean,
Shall we talk about Advaita Acharya? Maybe another time we can talk on these topics. Any other question? Yes, yes.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, in that Panchatattva, like Nityananda Prabhu is Bhakta Roop, Bhakta Sarup, and Advaita Acharya is pure devotee, someone is incarnation of pure devotee. So though they appear in the same platform, but their identity is different.
There?
Means someone is incarnation of pure devotee, someone is energy of devotional service, someone is Bhakta Sarup, someone is Bhakta Roop. So how does it differ? Means though they appear in the same platform, though they appear they are pure devotee, but how they differ?
Differ only in terms of being the expansions. Bhakta Swarup means he is the first immediate expansion, because he is Balaram. Nityananda Prabhu is Balaram. First expansion. Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu, therefore a later expansion. So he is the avatar, he descends. So they are distinguished in that way. But all three are in the category of Godhead as Vishnu Tattva. It's a technical distinction that is made. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Srila Advaita Acharya ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.